Slow this time. Hello, Writing Rabble. It's your Rabble Rouser author, Chris Everhart, back with another session for ordinary people who want to learn how to write and publish your books. If you have a story that you're thinking about putting on paper or on the word processor and you want to know how to get it organized, this is a great place for you. And if you're an experienced writer who just likes to learn different ways of storytelling and outlining, this is a great place for you as well. You're all welcome here. If you are enjoying the videos, please like, subscribe, share if you can, and also make comments. Liking these videos helps other writers find us. Subscribing helps me grow the channel. And comments are great for improvements. So I'm always happy to hear what other writers out there have to say. And as usual, I have my partner, Wes Nelson here. How's it going, Wes?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. How was your week in writing?
My week in writing was spent not writing, but outlining still, again,
Okay.
more. A
Yeah.
lot of brainstorming, a lot of pondering, a lot of sitting on a mountaintop in the rain, just sort of taking it all in, weighing the existence, having existential crises, the whole thing. So,
Yeah. Well, I remember thinking when I first got my first writing job and I was sitting at my desk looking out the window, trying to come up with an idea for something. And I thought, you know what's happening? They're paying me to think right now.
yes.
I'm like, finally, somebody who appreciates me.
Yeah.
So you're outlining and thinking about the story. Okay. Were you thinking about the story on the page
Yeah.
and as you were out doing other things,
Uh,
or
yeah. I was mainly thinking about the climax and what that should look like and how it should go. And I kept coming into this thing where I wanted to, these ideas kept popping into my head about this new superpower, or this new type of villain, or this new type of thing. And I was thinking too much about like a power and not enough about like an event. And when I started to try to think about it from a perspective of what actually needs to happen with the people I have
yeah.
versus what sort of cool new idea can I sort of try and pigeonhole in here,
Mm-hmm.
things started to open up. I stopped trying to just come up. I think for me, when I get stuck, it's very easy just to like, I'll just think of some cool, flashy thing that doesn't have a lot of substance,
Yeah.
and that'll get me by.
Yeah.
And the whole climax can't just, it wouldn't work, I don't think. I mean, I could do it, but it would be very obvious that I was just sort of like trying to just get by in some sort of artifice alone. So
Yeah.
that I was kind of like fighting some creative process in my head to stop thinking about these kind of inane ideas and actually think about something more of substance and what needs to happen. And this is the pivotal moment, so what's going to actually happen here? So
Yeah. I
and
mean, you actually need to be a little disciplined to write.
yeah,
You know?
shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You always, I guess I always thought that, watching TV and movies or reading a book, it's like, oh, they just came up with this and wrote it down or put a camera there. And, it's
yeah,
like, no, it's actually quite a process.
yeah. We can't just change the superheroes outfits and rely on
Right.
that. We need to
Right.
actually do
That's
something.
right.
And
And you can't suddenly give them a power that was never mentioned before
yeah,
in order to get them out of the jam they're in at the end of the book. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. That's the old, the hand of grace coming in and just sweeping away all the problems
I feel like
for,
they do that on Power Rangers a lot, where all of a
yeah,
sudden they'll have like a new Zord or a new, sword or crystal that they discover, which, is fine for that sort of, genre or whatever. But
yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's reveals the age of your children. But
yes,
yeah, it's true that, that there definitely are storytelling, areas or types, or audiences that you can do that with, without breaking, a sense of continuity, right?
yeah.
So, and maybe it's the magical thinking that kids still have, that they're not either experienced enough or jaded enough to to not believe in that, something will come in and just fix everything, right?
Yeah, like their whole life is ahead of them. Of course, it can always get better.
Right. Yeah, it must only get better, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
Otherwise,
right.
yeah, what are we doing here?
You don't have any setbacks. Well, and the other thing is that I don't know if we mentioned this before or not, that I heard there's a saying that I really like, and that is, the ending must be surprising yet inevitable.
Hmm.
In other words, when you get to that end point, whether, the end of the climax, you ought to be able to look back at the entire story and say, "Oh, it was there all along." But but the way you present it and the way you work it out is surprising, right? So
Yeah,
that could be a good way of, sort of reverse engineering the story, right?
yeah, yeah,
As you get to that end point, and then you have to look back and say, what should happen at this point?
yeah,
What should come here? And then maybe that is your clue about what may be missing earlier in the story,
yeah. I
right?
suppose it's back to that mirroring thing where they both need to line up.
Yeah. And it also, the answers to those may come from your theme or your dramatic question, right? And let's pull up the story hill briefly and have a look, because you'll notice that, let me scoot that over a little bit. All right. So when we're looking at the story hill, remember there's the inside of the curve, right? And I put in blue throughout the story, and they're not necessarily, well, first of all, it's not necessarily complete. There are likely more points of character development that could go in here, but they're also not necessarily in order, but generally they fall within the places where they would need to on the story curve.
Hmm.
So when we get to that 95%, right? That it says true mastery, which equals skills plus wisdom, right? So it's the skills that they've been learning all along, right? And through the awakening, they have the wisdom, hopefully, that allows them to put the skills to use correctly, right?
Hmm.
So, one question is, based on what they've learned throughout the story, what would be the ideal challenge for what they're learning, what they've learned, that would challenge their mastery and their wisdom, right?
Right.
And then, what maybe another question is, what is it that at that last point where we get back to where we get into sufficient world, which is phase 6 on the story hill, sufficient world and sufficient self, right? What do they need in order to be a sufficient self, or for the world to be sufficient for them, that they needed at in the first phase, which was ordinary world, right? So that kind of talks to your mirroring a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah,
right? So now you had asked me in text, what how do you know if you have a good outline or if your outline is ready? Is that
yeah.
what you kind of asked? Okay. What was there something what was that prompted by your trying to work out a good ending, a good climax, or was it like really that you suspect that things are missing from your outline?
No, I was just wondering if, if there's, I'm lazy, so I'm always looking for a shortcut. Is there any way to like look at your outline and be like, yes, this is good. No, I mean, is there any sort of smell test, sniff test that you sort of apply to an outline, or do you just like as you're writing and following the outline, you notice things are working or things are not? Just kind of in that vein.
Well, that's a really good question because I think I talked a little bit last week about how using the AI tools that I'm trying to learn and work with is forcing me to get organized and stay organized, and make decisions about the story ahead of time,
Hmm.
which I'm really not used to. It's clear now that I'm doing these things, it's clear what I've been missing, right?
Mm.
Um, so what I did with my outline using to use that with pseudo write is, let me see if I can find that and pull it up. Bum. Oh, I want to. Okay, so I want to. All right, I'm going to reveal something here, and that is what I'm currently working on.
Uh-oh.
So, yep, world exclusive here, folks. You heard it here first. Okay, let's cancel that. Let me bring this up and see if I can really show. Oh, got to go to a window. There we go. Okay. All right. Oop. God. I just get all click happy and get a little hopeless. All right. So, can you see this?
No, yeah. There we go. Yep.
Okay. So, what I'm working on is this is a what I guess you consider a new adult steamy romance called Aftermore Academy.
Sweet.
Okay. So, and by the way, the idea for doing this came out of researching what categories have high searches but low numbers of actual books on
Hmm.
Amazon.
Hmm.
And it came out as a paranormal academy romance. So I went through actually several iterations of stories that didn't quite work because as I kind of tried to work them out, that seemed to be a little too complicated, a little too concept heavy. So I kept peeling it back and bringing it back to more and more basic. Okay. So, but you'll see here that, and I probably could have put all this in, color coding, like I did. So you've got, now this is what the, skip that because I don't need that chapter there. So this is kind of this is the format that pseudo-write uses for an outline.
Okay.
Okay. So it goes act one and then a space and a dash. And then usually, they require a title here. And then below that, you go with the chapter, right?
Hmm.
So what I did for the title was, and also I broke what pseudo-write automatically creates a four. Yeah, I guess it's four, with act two broken into two. It's kind of a four-act structure. But using the story hill, I use a six-act structure, so I created it as a six-act structure. So
Okay.
you see that I started Ordinary World. Now, one thing that I realize may be hanging you up is, and I know this because it kind of hangs me up, is trying to fill out each of the sort of what you think of as requirements in the story hill, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you have permission to not try to fill in each and every point,
Okay.
but use that as a sort of a guide for um, what needs to go into each of those phases.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we
That
know
that's really
that,
helpful.
yeah, so if I pop up here to the story hill and I look at it, it's like, okay, this first ordinary world, we need to know the character's wounded flaw, their needs and desires, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So now I can, start creating this outline. And so we see that start with Act One, Ordinary World, Chapter One. Olivia basically wakes up, face to face with a student who at Aftermore Academy who will show her around campus.
Mm.
So we don't know what her, and basically it's, the first line is welcome to Aftermore Academy. You're dead. My name's Marcy. I'll show you around. Right.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So now, so the flaw, the wound may be considered that she's dead.
Yeah.
Right. She has died. The flaw is that she doesn't really acknowledge it, right? So everything is very confusing, and that's going to cause, she has to learn this new world, but she also feels some sense of who she was, even though she can't remember it. She still has a lot of the same attitudes and stuff that are going to get in her way. So we have to introduce this ordinary world is really the new world for her.
Sure.
Okay. A little convoluted, but okay. Now there's going to be a call and refusal. And that is that uh, this Olivia is challenged by an older student. Um, and, it basically says that what's outside the walls of Aftermore Academy is what's called Eternageddon. And
Nice.
it's basically a realm that where evil spirits and monsters pass through on their way to the earthly realm.
Oh, okay.
So this is where so the student warriors of Aftermore Academy um, join in battle with these evil characters in Eternageddon. Inside the walls, things are more or less perfect, but they're still human,
Yeah.
even though they're in the afterlife.
Okay.
So there's some things in there like you know Mar- Olivia asked somebody, "Is this heaven?" It's like, no, it's not. It ain't heaven, right? So then we've got our exciting incident, and that is, and I'm actually not quite to the point of writing this. I'm just up to chapter 7 right now.
Okay.
But the next thing is the inciting incident is that a student teacher is going to bring in a monster from outside of the academy's walls, one that was trapped, captured out in Eternageddon. And
Okay.
this is going to be the shock of seeing, because up to now, it's been kind of abstract. People have mentioned what's beyond the walls, just vaguely, that,
Hmm.
it's not safe out there. It's safe in here. I think one of her guide, who is this Marcy girl, actually tells her that, because Olivia tries to run away. And Marcy stops her and tells her that, you can run, you can leave the academy, but, if you step outside those gates, you're likely to get dragged to hell by what's out there.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So Olivia's convinced to stay and give it a try. And the next day in her first class, she's going to see a real monster
Oh,
that's
okay.
caged and everything. So she's going to go through these training things, not just training, but also um, uh, going through the budding romance with this boy who is somewhat spoken for by a girl who is from the Firecaster clan.
Hmm.
And they're having their run-ins, between the
Yeah.
three of them, basically. So now we're going to get up to the goal change here, which is orange. God, I hate that color. Right. So you can see what I'm doing
Yeah.
is I don't have every one of the things labeled as far as what's gonna happen in any given chapter or section,
Yeah.
but I can use the story hill as an example or as a reference to walk through setting up my outline,
Okay.
right? And so I'm making these decisions more or less logically,
Yeah.
right, at this point, and hope, and then and then expecting the logic of the story to carry forward and free me up to do the creative part of actually doing the writing, right?
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. You're laying in the skeleton before putting the flesh on. Kind
Yes.
of. Yeah.
And so yes, I'm creating the skeleton, and I'm committing to some extent,
Yeah.
right? It's not like a total commitment. It doesn't mean I can't change anything,
Right.
but I'm thinking about these ahead of time, right? And then this is where I get I showed you the color coded skeleton outline
Yeah.
earlier, right? So,
So you're not writing into an ending, you're writing towards an ending that you've already established.
w- um, yeah, and
Kind of.
yes, honestly, it's easier with romance because it's very specific. There has to be a gesture in that last, section,
Yeah.
and the characters get together. So it's a little more clear cut. But I would suggest that the story hill, as far as what needs to happen, is fairly clear cut as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we can use that as the ongoing example of what should go in the story. Okay.
Yep.
Now, if I make these decisions early, then that has already helped me stay on track
Yeah.
as I pick up the story and move on. So, I wonder if you are um feeling that you're committing to the incorrect outline, right? Too early, and that's what's freaking you out? Or are you having trouble filling in um, the sort of logical steps throughout the story that lead to a satisfying ending? How's that for a nonsensical question?
I think like what you said about filling in each and every single section prompt. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that can slow me down,
Okay.
especially in filling in the last bit there. The entire climax seems like it encompasses 4 or 5 of those little subheaders in
Say
a
that
way.
again. That
So in the climax section, that last phase, there's a lot of individual subsections that sort of all happen at the same time or happen in
Yes.
a
Yeah.
flurry of
That and
pages.
that. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So if we look
So
at
I'm trying to come up with a different put input for each one of them
okay.
when it's all sort of happening at the same time. So
Yeah, so let's look at that quickly. If we look at so let's look at this again. So if we look over on the left-hand side, right, this is the color-coded
yep,
uh, um, the color-coded outline in Scrivener. So the crisis climax phase, which starts around 75% and goes to 95% of the story.
hmm
So, so if I'm looking at this, fail antagonist is winning, right? The
yep,
character goes through the all is lost. The low point is why go on, right? But something has to happen something shows the protagonist the true stakes again, but in a new light.
Mm-hmm.
And the protagonist recognizes that he or she is the one who must fight for the better option. Okay. Then is the awakening. So they remember, recall, or reclaim their innocence, their optimism, their egos crushed. So, and then they admit their limitations to themselves and to others, and they reconcile. They reconcile their identity to the problem, I
Right.
guess is a good way of looking at it. And then they start to reform or beg their team to reform with them. Okay. So lessons and experience. So, yeah. So,
So some of that could all be happening in the same scene or conversation.
yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
character could be having an awakening while admitting their limitations in an attempt to reconcile with their team, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I tend to take things very, very literally when I look at stuff like this.
Okay.
And I don't I don't always remember that it's about exposition, or it's show, don't tell, but like I don't I'm not going to literally have my character say, I am having an awakening. It's not like I declare bankruptcy. It's like
Yeah.
there's a way to sort of put that on the page without it just being very overt and just saying it outright. And
Yeah.
that's,
Well, yeah. And to be fair, I mean, I kind of, led you in that direction too with the idea that, can you still hear me? I know my
yeah,
camera's off.
I can
All
hear
right.
you.
I don't know what's up with my camera, why it's gone off, but yeah. So I think, maybe I made that a little, it may have made it a little clear as far as, or kind of led you down this idea that you were going to fill these in, right? But and what I'm trying to do though with the story Hill is to give you something to fill in, um, to really uh, identify what should be there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
And it's totally necessary. It's just, it's not as fun and it's hard. So again, back to the job of being an actual writer, it's not just about flying by the seat of my pants. There has to be something there. So,
right, yep, that is true. So it is work, and
mm-hmm.
God help me, I didn't know that. Well, that's weird. My camera is totally, so the light is on and everything, but my screen is black. Yeah. So okay. So in trying to sort of fill in every aspect of that outline document that I've sort of shared with you,
Yeah.
it seems like it's actually limiting or hurting more than it's helping, because it seems like everything should be separate and exactly in order. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yep.
when I read books, I notice that there's sort of mini story hills happening throughout
Yeah.
sometimes. And every book's different and every, genre and all that stuff. So it's not a like for like. And I don't know. So
Okay.
yeah, but I don't think it's hurting me. It's just slowing me down in a way that needs to happen.
Okay. Got it.
So
Yeah, and so what I'm trying to do for you is to get you through these stages of development faster than the 15, 20 years it took me.
yeah, and I'm already light years. Yeah, like
Yeah, I
yeah.
think you are too.
I
Okay,
mean, this
good.
is
Well, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, it's I would have given up 3 months ago if I didn't have this sort of outline to keep coming back to, and this weekly check-in to
Well, that's
so
cool.
yeah, no, it's really good. It's it's through that first phase of like, oh, this is fun and exciting, and then it becomes
Like, oh my God, what have I done?
yeah, yeah, and now it's like kind of settling into a groove, and it doesn't seem, it still seems really hard, but it seems still like possible. And
Yeah.
I seriously, I think within the last hour before we even got on here, I think I have a pretty good climax ready to go. So I think that's why I kind of asked that question too, because I think I'm ready to jump back in. But now I'm like, well, crap, what it, do I need to just start all over, or do I just sort of keep plugging away from sort of the middle onward? Like that's a whole other thing, is trying to, like, now I have to like check my work, double check the outline against the story. And I don't know how to do that again in a not lazy way. So
Yeah. I mean, you just, like I've told you before, my first manuscript, I did 13 drafts of it.
geez, yeah.
So yeah, and it still never saw the light of day. So it's that's just part of the process.
Yeah,
And for me, that's how I learned to write a whole book.
yeah,
That by writing it and rewriting it and editing and editing and editing. So I think that you're on the right track, and us being able to talk weekly about the little frustrations or setbacks you're having along the way um, helps you make those mental connections.
yeah,
And I think it's, two steps up, one step back, but that one step back always feels like a really long step.
yes.
So,
It feels like
e-
19 steps, but it's not.
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's
Even
still
though it's not, even though it's
right.
not it feels like a disaster, but it's actually a step in the right direction.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because
Okay.
it makes me take a look at what's still coming and not just blindly rush forward. And
Yeah.
yeah, all sorts
Okay.
of mixed metaphors from me today. So
Right. And, like I said before, make sure that, if you're coming up with inventive stuff and scenes and or magic or whatever, make sure to save that stuff because it
yeah,
may well come in handy later.
yeah,
But you're just saying not in this volume, right? And we're
yep,
gonna we're gonna move it to the ideas for later, which you will definitely need.
yeah,
But yeah, so keep coming back to the outline of the book you're working on, and it does get easier. It ges more intuitive.
yeah. Okay.
But man, how it goes. You just got to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
A lot of a lot of times I'll catch myself when I'm stuck and I'm going, I should know this. I should know how to do this. But the truth is that maybe I just haven't practiced that part enough.
Well,
Um,
I feel like I'm going through this with my character in sort of a codependent way. Like I'm trying to smash my ego while I'm trying to make my character smash his ego, and have an
mhm.
awakening and have this reconciliation. And yeah, because the more I do this outline, it's like, yeah, I'm probably going to have to rewrite this, and I still am in some sort of disbelief that my first go around is going to be ready to go and I can just ship it
Uh-huh.
off, and that's getting smashed slowly but surely.
Yeah. All right. Well, is that enough? So you're off next week, so we
Yep.
won't be meeting next weekend. But so 2 weeks you have to go have some fun with the family while maybe tapping away at this outline a little bit.
I'm gonna call it location scouting so I can expense the whole trip.
There you go. Good
Yep.
idea. It takes place in San Diego.
Yeah.
Um, and okay, so do you think that you have enough to work on,
Yeah.
enough questions to answer?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then, that can be productive time even if you're just taking a break from the writing.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's always, the biggest challenge often is to ask the right questions, okay?
Yeah.
So I think if you're on the way.
Yeah. I want to write through this last phase of the hill, put it all together, and then probably just, I don't know, start over again or something. But I just kind of want to give this a whole honest run through and then see where I land with it. Or I don't know.
Okay. No, that sounds good, and we'll see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, if you're good, then I'm gonna, talk us or sing us out here, and we'll be back in a couple weeks. All right. Well, you can just stay on the screen with me because nobody can see my face.
Right on.
Okay, Rabble, writing Rabble. Thanks for joining us today. Today we talked through Wes getting a little more detailed on his outline using the story hill and how he can break some of the log jams by being less detailed or even less specific when trying to fill in that outline and see where those parts of the outline can overlap or even be nested, the character growth be nested within something else that's happening. So that's been a really good conversation, and he's going to go away and work on that a little bit, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. So until next, and remember, like, subscribe, comment. Comments will help us make the Writing Rabble better. But until next time, Writing Rabble, but in chair, words on page. Bye now.
See ya.